I remember me and this girl end up going inside the U-Haul, and out of nowhere, she looks at me and says, you know, I've never done it back here. This might be a new spot we could try. And at that moment, I remember she started taking off her clothes, and we did it in the back of a U-Haul. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a super crazy, but I gotta say, embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in grade 10, and honestly, my grade 10 year, I was a major player. Like, don't get me wrong, on the channel, I always talk about me doing the Devil's Tango. But no joke, I think I've done it so many times to a point where I'm shocked my eggplant still works. But going on with the story, I remember there was one specific time back in my grade 10 year where I had a lot of sneaky links. Except there was one girl that was my sneaky link that I always enjoyed hanging out with. I don't know what it is about her, but like, she was always super nice to me and she would always talk to me about like personal stuff. And not only that, but also doing the Devil's Tango with her was great. And over time, from me getting to know her, no joke, like, I gotta say, I think I might have like developed feelings. Obviously, I didn't say that to her whatsoever because me back in high school, I wasn't really looking for a relationship. I just wanted to enjoy my high school years as much as possible and basically just have fun. But I remember me and her, we would always like plan to meet up at like random points of the day. Like for example, there was one time at lunch where we ended up going to the fire escape and we ended up closing the door and just doing the Devil's Tango. And sometimes we would do it in the back of my car. We would do it in a porta potty. We would do it in so many different places. And she was always down to do it because like she had as much energy as I had when it came to doing the Devil's Tango. In a way, I guess she was like the perfect person for me. At least so I thought. But I remember one time when I was sitting at home playing video games, I ended up getting a text message on my phone. It was her texting me saying, hey, Bubba, what are you doing right now? Nothing. I'm just at home playing video games. Why? What's up? Oh, like, want me to like come over in like a bit? Yeah, sure. You can come over. I don't mind. So I remember like 20 minutes went by and she ended up coming over to my place. I ended up letting her in. We went upstairs to my room and we started just kind of sitting down, hanging out, just talking about school and stuff. And I remember midway through our conversation, she says, honestly, like, yeah, I don't know how I would see myself going anywhere else but to the school we go to be honest. Well, good thing you don't have to think about it. Yeah, I guess not. I remember when she said, I guess not, I got confused because it seemed like she was hiding something and she started to look a little bit off. So that's when I mentioned, is everything okay? Like, is something going on? No, nothing's going on. Don't worry about it. Here, let's just do it. At that moment, me and her, we did the Devil's Tango and things were fantastic. But after we finished, I remember she got up and she had to go home because apparently her dad called her to do some work that she needed to do, which has never happened, by the way. She never got asked to do anything by her parents, so I'm surprised this was like one of the first times I've seen this happen. But then she ended up leaving my place and went home. I remember the next day at school, when I saw her in the hallway, I decided to walk up to her and say hi. I went, I said hello to her, and she started to look at me very awkwardly. And once again, I ended up asking her, hey, like, is everything all right? She ended up just giving me a massive hug and squeezing me as if she was going to leave. I remember I really didn't understand what was going on and I was super confused. But I remember down the hallway, one of my friends that was like part of the boys back when I was in high school that I would always hang out with saw this happen, and after she hugged me, he ended up walking up to me. He walked up to me and said, yo, Bubba, is everything good, bro? Like, that was kind of weird. I've never seen you hug her like that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with her, to be honest with you. Bro, from the looks of it, I'm not gonna lie, it seems like she's developed feelings for you. At that moment in my head, I started to think, wait, is this really true? Does she really have feelings for me? I started to do the math on it and really thought, okay, if she's acting awkward around me and also hugging me very tightly, maybe she does have feelings for me. So that's when I decided to develop a plan to basically just ask her out. Because like I said earlier, she was almost like the perfect person for me. She always matched my energy. She always was, you know, awesome to hang out with. Like, there was no really losing with this girl. So I remember later on that school day, I ended up shooting her a text message saying, hey, like, do you want me to come over today? We can kind of like hang out. Actually, I'm kind of busy today. There's something I have to tell you. Do you want to like talk about it at your place? Yeah, sure. I don't mind whatsoever. We can go to my place. And when she told me that, I thought in my mind that, you know, maybe she was gonna tell me that she liked me and that we could start dating. So I remember that entire day, I was just super excited. I was super excited to see her. I was excited for her to come over. Like, you guys have no idea. This was the most exciting time for me. But then obviously all good things must come to an end, because I remember after school came around and I headed back home, started to play video games, waiting for her to come over. And when she finally came over, that's when things went south. Because I remember she came over over and she didn't really want to speak. She just ended up like, you know, hugging me really tightly. And we went straight to my room and we did the Devil's Tango. And like we went straight to it. Like we didn't have any conversation, nothing. But then that's when this girl ended up laying beside me and hugged me once more as we were finished. And she says to me, honestly, Bubba, I'm really gonna miss us. Miss us? Wait, what do you mean? And then that's when she sat up on my bed and said, yeah, I didn't know how to tell you, but I'm moving. You're moving? Wait, what? At that moment, I started to freak out. I was really annoyed. I was really upset and I didn't know what to think. Like this whole time, I thought she developed feelings for me, but no, it ends up being that she's leaving me and I'm never gonna be able to see her again. I remember I looked over at her and I told her, wait, so is this the last time I'm gonna see you? Oh, I mean, technically, like to do it, yeah, but I mean, you can come over if you want, like help me pack if that helps. And that's when I agreed to help her basically pack and get things into the moving truck so I could see her one last time. Even though we weren't gonna do the Devil's Tango, I still wanted to see her. So I remember I ended up basically the next day, went to her place after school and me and her started moving her boxes all into this giant U-Haul that her father rented. I started moving things in and helping her out. And as we were putting things in and moving things out of her place, we just kept talking about all the crazy places we've done it in and all the crazy memories from back in high school and even how we first met. Obviously, she started tearing up a bit here and there. And then that's when she said, honestly, like this can't be the last time. I'm sure there's somewhere we could do it. I don't really know. Like you don't have a bed anymore and like your father's home. So like there's really no place we could do it. Honestly, we'll think of something is what she told me. And we ended up picking up the final boxes of her bedroom and putting it in the U-Haul. At that moment, when we were putting the boxes away, I remember her dad ended up coming to the back of the U-Haul as we were putting stuff in there. And he said to us, oh, honey, I'm going to quickly be going to the store real quick to pick up some food. Are you hungry by any chance? No, Dad, I'm okay. Bubba, do you want anything? I'm good, thanks, to be honest. Okay, well, you kids have fun. I'll be back in like half an hour. He ended up getting in his truck and leaving. And the U-Haul was still left there in front of the house. And that's when this girl ends up looking around the U-Haul and she says to me, Bubba, have you ever done it in a U-Haul? No, this would be a first if anything, is what I told her. And that's when she ended up taking off all her clothing and we ended up doing the Devil's Tango in the back of a U-Haul. I remember we were shaking that truck like nonstop and like it was so awkward doing it in the U-Haul, but hey, I mean, it was only the Devil's Tango. How hard was it really? And I remember after like 20 minutes, we ended up hearing a truck pull up and we recognized that it was her father's truck. So we started to put our clothes on as fast as we could. But right before I could pull up my pants, her father ends up opening the truck confused on why it was closed. And he saw me pulling up my pants and saying, oh, so that's why you hang out with my daughter so much, huh? Isn't it, Bubba? Sorry, sir, is what I said to him. And he's like, okay, son, just pull up your pants and don't worry. This will be the last time probably you see her anyway. And he closed the U-Haul once again. At that moment, me and this girl just started laughing and laughing over and over. And we realized that, you know what? Maybe doing it in the back of a U-Haul was the best way to end off our relationship. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. And if you guys have never done it in the back of a U-Haul, then fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. And I remember when me and her were both underground in the sewer, no joke, she looks over at me and says, well, I mean, we're already down here and we're alone. So like, why not? Wait, what? And let's just say we did things that not even the Ninja Turtles would like. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to another crazy but also super embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was actually my grade 10 year. Now in grade 10, I took a science class. If you guys don't know, it's mandatory for all students in high school to take science. And me, I never really mind science, but one thing I can say, if it gets to the point where it's dangerous, that's when I start not liking it. One thing I realized definitely for sure though, growing up, is that I could never be a doctor as well. But besides that, I remember when I entered inside my science class, we were doing a unit where basically we were talking about global warming and seeing if the air was different between cities and also the jungle, I guess, or forest as we have here in Canada. And our teacher ended up walking in front of the class and saying, okay, students, we're gonna be matching you guys up in pairs. Bubba, you're with this girl. And that's when he pointed out a girl in my class that not a lot of people liked because she was known for getting in people's minds really weirdly. What does that mean? Well, you guys will see later on in the story. But I remember I ended up basically pairing up with her, and me and this girl, we ended up having a project where we had to go into the forest and we had to go into the city and see the difference in air quality. I didn't mind this project and I thought this was gonna be something quick and easy we could just finish off after school. So I remember when we ended up getting into our group, she ended up looking at me saying, oh, do you want to like just get this project done and just go today after school? Yeah, sure. Like it shouldn't take more than an hour, right? No, it definitely shouldn't. We'll be 100% okay. But let's just say this project ended up giving us way more trouble than it should have been, because I remember right after school finally came around and me and this girl, we ended up going towards the forest. But as we were on the way there walking, because at this time I didn't have my car, she looks over at me and says, I'm just curious. A lot of girls talk about you at school. Like, what's your problem? What do you mean what's my problem? Well, like, I don't know. Like, a lot of girls say that, like, you know, you're kind of a player. At that moment, I knew what she was talking about because, like I said earlier, in my grade 10 year, I was a player and I didn't know any better and no one should do what I do. But I remember I ended up just basically kind of like ignoring her questions because it got to the point where she started asking me questions that were way too personal. Like, no, you don't get to know if I have daddy issues, and no, my mom still loves me and still makes me dinner, even still to this day. But going on, I remember as we were in the forest, we end up finishing the part where we're supposed to, you know, finish up the testing of air quality, whatever that means. And this girl looks over at me and says, so like, are you really like that big? What do you mean? I'm only like 5'10". No, like, actually, like, you know what I mean? Like, are you like hung? At that moment, I felt really uncomfortable because a girl asking that, especially in the forest, well, if it was any other girl, you guys would probably know what I would do, and I don't really need to say it. But at the same time, this girl I was not interested in because once again, this girl had a really big mouth. So knowing this, I ended up basically ignoring her question, and we ended up just talking about the project like we were supposed to. But this is where things get kind of awkward because I remember we ended up basically started heading towards the city, and from the city to the forest, it was like a 30-minute walk, not even. So as me and this girl were walking, we ended up stopping by and getting some McDonald's. Not the best choice in food, but at the same time, McDonald's, please sponsor me. I know you sponsored Kai Sinat, but I like eating food too, and also I could gain some weight. But honestly, after we finished eating, me and her, we ended up heading towards the city just to finish our project. And once we got there, I remember we ended up doing the project, we ended up finishing things up, and me and her were both exhausted. We were ready to go home and just get done with this stupid, dumb project that no one liked. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care about global warming, nor do I feel like it's real. Because, like, what? We still have seasons, don't we? And this is where everything messes up. And before I tell you guys what messed up, real quick, I just want to say you guys should definitely follow my Twitch. I stream on there almost every day, and I'm probably streaming right now as you're watching this video. So go ahead and do that. But I remember as me and the girl were walking on the sidewalk of the city we were in, we ended up walking side by side, and this girl says something insane where she says, so like, do I have to like pay you to like me, or like, are you not gonna give me a taste? And at that moment, I ended up looking at her, not looking at the direction I was walking, and I ended up walking over some caution tape and falling into the sewer. I fell inside a sewer. Like, you guys know those sewer gates that's supposed to be covered up, but it's covered up with these like weird line things that don't really actually help out because people still drop their phones, wallets, keys. You guys know the whole gist of it. Well, basically, for some reason, this caution tape was covering a hole that was leading to the sewer, and it wasn't covered. I don't know why. I guess they were doing some sort of construction there, but I ended up falling into it when this girl said the most craziest question, and when I fell in, I remember I hurt my legs so bad. Like, my ankles were burning from the landing I did because I ended up landing on my feet. It wasn't a crazy drop. I want to say it was like almost a 7-foot drop, which isn't that bad, but honestly, it definitely did hurt my leg. At that moment, I ended up looking up and I realized I was stuck in the sewer, and that's when I yelled out saying, yo, can you go get like a cop or something? Can you call for help? Yeah, no problem. I can call for help real quick. Can you throw up your phone? At that moment, I ended up looking for my phone, but at the same time, I didn't want to throw my phone up because I don't know if this girl's actually going to catch it, and I had the newest iPhone at the time, and I didn't want her to break it. So I remember I ended up just telling her, yo, just take out your phone. Why do you need mine? I don't know. Like, I don't really have service in the city. What? At that moment, I didn't understand what's wrong with this girl or what she was even talking about. I think this girl was actually somewhat dumb, but to be fair, she was blonde, so I don't really blame her. But it got to the point where this girl started calling out saying, yo, can anyone help us? Help, my friend's stuck down there. And then what she ends up doing next is she looks into the sewer, sees me, and she ends up jumping down with me. Why? I have no idea. But she ended up jumping, and I remember she ended up landing on her feet as well, and she looks over at me saying, oh my goodness, wow, that actually really hurt. What are you doing down here? Is the first thing I said to her, because there was no way this girl literally decides to jump into the sewer I got stuck in just to help me. But I don't understand the point of what this girl was trying to do. And it got to the point where me and her started arguing in the sewer. I started yelling at her because I'm like, yo, you're supposed to, you know, get someone to get us out of here. And that's when the girl said, okay, well, why don't you just whip out your phone and call someone? I remember I pulled out my phone, and since we were stuck in the sewer, for some reason, my phone didn't actually work. I don't know why, but for some reason, I couldn't call anybody, and I had no bars whatsoever. And to be fair, since I was doing the science project, I was on my phone a lot, totally, absolutely ignoring the fact that we were doing the science project and mostly texting other girls. But basically, I'm not gonna lie, my phone was basically dead. Okay, it basically was dead. It was useless. It was at like 3%, and I had no service. I couldn't do anything about it. Okay, so knowing that, I remember I ended up just telling this girl that my phone doesn't work, and me and her, we ended up staying down there yelling out of the little hole that we fell in. We kept yelling back to back to back, and for some reason, no one heard us except Except that one homeless guy that walked by and just looked inside and then just looked away and pretended he saw nothing, which that guy sucks, by the way. If you're ever watching my videos, I'm coming after you. Not actually, please. I'm not a crazy guy, but going on. I remember I got super upset and we were in there for over half an hour. No joke. Me and her, we ended up just sitting down on the sides of the sewer and we're just like looking at each other. And once again, I ask her, why did you jump down with me? Like, you could have went and got someone to me. Well, I didn't want you to be here alone. We're in this together. We're in this together for the science project, not for you to be in the sewer with me, is what I yelled at her. And honestly, I was really mad because I really wanted to go home that day and play some Call of Duty Black Ops 2. But clearly, for some reason, this girl had different plans and decided to get stuck in the sewer with me. Anyways, I remember like another hour went by and we were in there for like an hour and a half. And it got to the point where I stood up and said, okay, you know what? We're going to go for a walk. Where are we going to go? We can't get out. We're going to walk into the sewer. We're gonna go see if we can find a way out. What? But it's really dark in here. Yeah, but it's fine. Our eyes will adjust and we won't be in here for long. Maybe we can find the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't really know if that's a good idea, Bubba. No, we're gonna do it because I'd rather not do nothing than do something. So at that moment, me and this girl, we ended up getting up and we ended up walking down the sewer line. It got to the point where it was so dark that it was actually pitch black. It's kind of weird because I thought humans could adjust to like darkness and seeing in the dark, but clearly we actually can't, especially if it's underground. And one thing I definitely realize now is that I could never be a Ninja Turtle. Like, I don't know how the Ninja Turtles do it, but like living underground for a super long time with a rat they call Master Splinter, yeah, you're totally trolling, bro. I could never live down there. So knowing that, I remember it got to the point where we decided to walk back the direction we went and we ended up seeing the sewer crate once again. But at that moment, when we walked back to the sewer hole that we fell in, we ended up hearing a bunch of police sirens. And that's when me and this girl started yelling and screaming back to back. And then we finally saw a cop look over and say, what are you two kids doing down there? We got stuck in the sewer. What? Okay, well, we didn't know people fell in here. We just saw the tape was falling down. We were called to fix it, but we have to call the fire department. You guys just stay down there. We'll be getting you guys soon. At that moment, me and this girl, we ended up waiting like 10 minutes. And for people that are supposed to come and save fires at a good time, they sure take a long time to get two people out of the sewer. So knowing this, me and this girl, we ended up just sitting there and it got to the point where she looks at me and says, yo, so like, I don't know. I think we have like another half an hour down here. Do you want to do anything? No, not really. Why? Well, like, I don't know. Like, once again, I just want to know how big you are. At that moment, I'm not joking. I was so annoyed by her asking all these personal questions to the point where I just whipped out my eggplant. And yeah, not gonna lie, we ended up doing the devil's tango in the sewer. Totally disgusting, but to be fair, I've done it in more disgusting places, which if you guys want to figure out more disgusting places, subscribe to the channel. But yeah, honestly, it got to the point where like 20 to 30 minutes later, finally the fire department came and pulled us out of there and we smelled disgusting. Like, we smelled so bad, bro. It was absolutely insane. And honestly, yeah, that was like basically it. We ended up getting out and the next day at school, we ended up actually, funny enough, being on the news for being two kids stuck in the sewer, but the whole school knew about it. And yeah, I could not stop hearing the jokes about me and the girl in the sewer. But honestly, if you guys don't believe the story is real, then follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. I remember the school got into a lockdown, then out of nowhere, I ended up heading straight for the doors, but then I realized that the doors were locked. And my crush looks at me saying, oh my goodness, I think we're trapped in here. Like, what was I supposed to do? Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. So this story all happened back when I was actually in middle school. And in middle school, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was in no way a player. Okay, usually I would say I was a player, but that was only in high school. In middle school, I was a really insecure kid, and I'm not gonna lie to you, the only things I actually cared about back then was playing video games and kind of just Batman. Batman's been my favorite superhero ever since I was a kid, by the way, and still to this day, I love Batman, to the point where I even have a Batman tattoo. But going on with the story, I remember there was a day in middle school where basically the teacher ended up walking in front of the classroom saying, okay, class, so we're going to be having a surprise lockdown eventually sometime this week. So I want you guys all to make sure you guys are calm and ready for when it happens. It's just a drill, and trust me, everything will be a-okay. I promise. Now, obviously, if you guys don't know what a lockdown is, basically is when your school gets like kind of like into a lockdown for like safety reasons, and everyone has to like kind of go into the corner of the classroom and hide. It's like rehearsed for certain reasons, which I mean, if you're an American citizen, you would understand. But going on with the story, I remember all my friends were talking about this, saying that it was like a super fun thing to like basically rehearse, which honestly kind of blew my mind and really did not make any sense. Because me personally, I never liked doing any drill, like fire drill, lockdowns. Like I never liked any of it back when I was growing up, because let's be real here, the alarm is super loud when it happens. But throughout the entire week, I remember a lot of students the whole time in the school would keep trying to like predict when the lockdown was gonna happen. I don't know why, but there were even people like trying to make jokes about it and stuff, which honestly is not something to joke about in my opinion, but I had bigger worries to worry about because I remember the next day ended up coming around and basically I ended up going into my science classroom. Now growing up, I was never good at science, but I remember our science teacher ended up handing us a project that we had to do grouped up in pairs, and me, I ended up pairing up with my crush. Now, if you guys don't know, back when I was in middle school, I had a major crush on this one certain girl. Like, this girl was my entire world. I even wrote about her in my journal as if like it was a diary. That's how far I've gotten with falling in love with this girl. But at the time of this story, I'm not gonna lie to you, I never actually even spoke to this girl. Like, I don't even know if she knows I existed. But I remember out of pure embarrassment, I remember the teacher ends up calling out my name and my crush's name right afterwards, and we were assigned as a group for a science project. Now, this moment, I remember was the first time my crush ever like actually stared into my eyes, and she looked at me saying, okay, well, I guess you're my partner. You're Bubba, right? Yeah, hi. I'm Bubba. Okay, cool. Now, I'm not gonna lie, she looked at me as if I was pretty dumb, but don't get me wrong, I was really nervous. And back when I was in middle school, I had a majorly bad stutter, okay? Like, the stutter was bad. Even during like recording these videos, I'm not gonna lie to you, I stutter a lot, but thank God there's a thing called editing, because if there wasn't, then I would be stuttering 24/7. And I don't think you guys want to hear that. But basically, me and her, we ended up pairing up together, and we ended up going to a different part of the classroom, and me and her, we started working on this project where we were supposed to make things light up with a potato. Yeah, I didn't know there was energy in potatoes or in certain foods, I guess, but that was like basically like the unit we were on for like finding out electricity. So we ended up using a potato to try to make power. But I remember the whole time this girl, my crush, would speak to me, I would always, and I mean always, stutter trying to say something back to her. Like, it was a repeat of, oh, like, did you actually plug that in properly? Yeah. Like, it was really, really bad, and it was very obvious that like that she felt uncomfortable because, well, I guess I was a weirdo back then. I'm not gonna lie. I remember when the bell rang for lunch, instantly I ended up seeing this girl getting up and actually leaving the classroom right away. Like, she didn't even say anything to me and left. And I noticed that she went straight to her friends, and I guess they started gossiping about me because she ended up pointing at me and I guess making fun of me, which honestly, I don't blame her, but to this day, like, you know, it does kind of suck being, you know, hated on like that. But to be fair, I deal with hate all the time now. I don't know. It was just something personal that actually kind of hurt my feelings. And when my feelings were hurt back then, well, the first thing I would do is go straight to my journal, not a diary, it was a journal, and I would write in it basically putting down my feelings. But as I went to my locker, I ended up realizing that my journal wasn't there. I ended up freaking out, and I'm like, wait, where's my journal? What? And I started panicking and freaking out because that journal leaving my vicinity was a bad thing, a very bad thing. You guys don't understand what's in my journal. Well, actually, I made a video about it a long time back. If you guys do want to see that, check it out on the channel. But going on, I started panicking and thinking, where would I leave my journal? I went back into like every classroom I could think of, and then the bell finally rang for lunch to end, and I was back into my science classroom because that was the last place I did not check. As I'm in my science classroom, I'm looking around trying to find this thing, and one thing led to another. I ended up seeing my crush end up walking in to the science classroom saying, oh, hey, Bubba, I forgot my textbook here. Do you know where it is? And right at that moment, when she asked me that, I ended up hearing a brr, 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 and it was the alarm going off for the lockdown. I remember I start panicking, and I look at her thinking, wait, what's going on? And instantly at that moment, I realized that the doors ended up making like a locking sound, and I sprinted for the doors before it could happen, but I didn't make it in time, obviously. And right as I'm like moving the door handle, I'm realizing that it's not unlocking. My crush ends up looking over my shoulder, and she says, Bubba, I think we're stuck in here. And at that moment, I end up looking at her, and I'm like, what? We're stuck? We're gonna die, dude. Bubba, there's nothing to worry about, okay? Like, it's just a lockdown. It's just a drill. Relax. Okay, well, like, what's the procedure? What are we supposed to do? I ended up trying to figure out, like, what was the best plan and trying to find any worksheet around the teacher's desk that told us what we were supposed to do in a lockdown, because I was panicking so much to the point where I did not know what to do. I remember this girl, though, that was in the classroom with me. She did not care at all. Like, my crush did not care whatsoever that there was a lockdown happening. She literally ended up sitting at the teacher's desk and decided to basically, like, sit back and just go on her phone. I ended up looking at her saying, you do realize we're in lockdown, right? Like, we can't just be on our phones. Like, what if we get in trouble? Bubba, there's no one in here but us. We're gonna be fine. Okay, you can say that all you want, but we're in a lockdown. We should at least treat it like a lockdown. Oh my goodness, why do you gotta be so weird, Bubba? At this moment, I remember I looked at her and I'm like, wait, you actually think I'm that weird? Well, no, I didn't mean it like that. And at that moment, I'm not gonna lie to you, I ended up just sitting down and just saying, okay, you know what? Whatever. Just do what you want, I guess. I remember my crush ends up walking up beside me and sitting down and saying, you know, this is the first time I've heard you not stutter towards me. Yeah, well, I get nervous around you. I don't know. What? Why do you get nervous, Bubba? Well, I don't know if you know, but like I have a crush on you. So like obviously like I'm gonna be nervous around you. It's kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Oh, I just thought you were like dumb or something. At that moment, I ended up looking at her and me and her, we started laughing. And well, one thing led to another. We actually started connecting on a different level. We started talking about popularity and like, you know, how middle school is like basically the age where we all hit puberty and start being weirdos, I guess. And me and her, we actually got along to the point where she actually ended up letting me put my arm around her. And well, one thing led to another. I started to notice that she was leaning in towards me. So I decided to lean back towards her. And me thinking this was the first time I was ever gonna get to kiss a girl that was my crush, the teacher ends up unlocking the science classroom and looking at us saying, hey, what are you two doing in here? It's a lockdown. You guys are supposed to be outside. The teachers are looking for you. Oh, sorry, we're heading right out right now. At that moment, I remember she ended up standing up right away and leaving, and me, I'm just sitting at that desk thinking, wow, the best thing that was ever gonna happen to me ended up getting blocked by a teacher. I remember I ended up basically going outside with this girl, and we ended up lining up in our classrooms like we were supposed to, and well, the teacher got obviously really mad at us to the point where actually I ended up getting detention. And not only me, but she also got detention as well. And I remember this girl, when she found out she got detention, she ended up gossiping with her friends, saying that I was at fault for it, and she called me the weirdo that got her detention, even after everything that just happened. Honestly, my heart broke. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I thought, you know what? Maybe there was no chance with me ever being with this girl ever. Maybe she was just too out of my league. Until after school came around, I remember I ended up basically going to detention like I was supposed to. And I saw her at the front of the door, and she looked at me and she went inside her backpack and said, hey, Bubba, wait, I have something for you. I remember I found this in the classroom. And she ended up handing me my journal. I ended up grabbing it right away saying, wait, you didn't read this, did you? No, I didn't read it, Bubba. I respect your privacy, okay? And to be honest, you're embarrassing for yourself enough. Oh, okay, cool, is what I said. And we ended up going into detention and dealing with it. Honestly, I don't know. It was kind of a crazy experience, and to this day, it kind of sucked knowing what happened. And if my middle school crush is watching this right now, I just want to say you suck. Like, seriously, like you were just a D1 hater. Like, for real. Why'd you gotta hurt me like that back when I was a kid? I don't know. Parts of me think that she's the reason why I became an ultimate player. But other than that, follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.